Gary, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Good. Thank you for being here. Very, very much appreciated. Obviously, at Ocean Holidays now, like head of content. But what led you to that role? So, has your career sort of unfolded to date?
It's pretty varied. I mean, I left kind of school at 16, right? And no qualifications. So I went, like everybody does with no qualifications, into sales. And basically, I spent kind of 10 to 15 years in mobile phone sales, right from retail shop floor up to, I went through small business, corporate, global, all with Vodafone. And behind the scenes, I was actually a creative. I played in a band, smoked a bit of weed, had a hooky copy of Photoshop, which is kind of like every agency owner's origin story, right? What I had this kind of like this BHAG, right? Vodafone call it a BHAG, and they actually have like a massive, like big purple monster running around the building, right? Which is a big, hairy, audacious goal. So I set this goal, I had like an epiphany that I wanted to be a leader of a creative organization within the next 10 years. So every kind of step that I took from then on was always towards this big, hairy, audacious goal. So I moved to New Zealand for 10 years, and I blinked and came back married. I'd been like a sales director for a ticketing company. Then I was a sales director for an agency, and then I kind of started my own agency for 6 or 7 years when I got back, and I've been back probably now about 10 years. I started that agency, got to probably 6 or 7 people over 6 or 7 years, and then I had a mental breakdown. And after then getting on antidepressants and speaking to my wife and kind of coming out of the mist, I realised it was actually the work or the job that was crushing me, right? And now I'm a massive advocate for men's mental health, or just speaking up about mental health, and that dispel that myth around talking about antidepressants and the taboo word and stuff like that. So I came out of that because I was wearing so many hats. Excuse the pun. Yeah. I was like CFO. I was the creative director, which I'd always wanted to be. I was a youth pastor. I was a cleaner, right? I was everything. So then I, for a couple of years, I was like a fractional freelance creative director, just potting around until I found something proper, and then now I'm head of group content at Ocean Holidays. And Ocean Holidays is a group. We've got Ocean Florida Trade, Ocean Beds, and Wing Boots, and they all do slightly different things. Wing Boots is for ultra high net worths, and Ocean Florida, we're number one for Florida holidays.
Okay, so I want to touch upon a few things you said there, if that's okay. The first one, when you were in New Zealand, you got the second job as sales director of an agency.
Yeah.
Was that the gateway to starting your own agency, working within it and sort of seeing how it all worked and all the rest?
It was. And I was head of sales. Well, I moved to head of sales and marketing for a ticketing company like Ticketmaster, but a Kiwi version, right? And that got the marketing in my job title, which allowed me to kind of sidestep from sales into marketing. And then I managed to go as a sales director for an agency. So it was kind of like the opposite of it, So then I was like, the agency was like exclusively video content. And it was like really early on. This could have easily been now 10, 15 years ago, when it was like video content was just starting to take off. It was the big thing, right? Yeah. And we boomed, and it was great. And then when I moved back, I was like, oh my God, why don't I just like take that template of that business and bring it to the UK? Because I felt NZ was ahead of the game in terms of content creation, because they're such like a micro economy. Agencies had to be really innovative to capture the only few amount of dollars that were being spent. So they were really pushing boundaries. And then, I did like the first Facebook Live in NZ. It was like during one of the Rugby World Cup when NZ won, the All Blacks won in when they were playing it in Australia and NZ. And that was like 15 years ago. It seems crazy now. And then coming back, everyone was like, wow, you're doing such innovative things. I was like, God, I've been doing it for years. And it kind of took off. We were exclusively video content for a bit. And then we went and started doing social media, started doing live and podcasting. And now Ocean Studio, which is the department I run within Ocean Holidays Group, is effectively an agency, a one-man agency, for one of I'd like it to be more than one man. One person. We're kind of this, one agency within the business managing these 4 brands and all of the content. And when we say content, there's always that age-old discussion around copy and creative assets. And this is creative assets is what we're talking about here. So video, photo, audio, and live are the 4 streams.
Okay. The other thing you mentioned there, and we didn't talk about talking about this, so if you don't want to talk about it,
sure.
absolutely no problem at all. But you said that once you've been running your agency for a while, that you had some mental health issues.
Yeah.
Are you comfortable talking about that?
Absolutely, yeah, man, yeah.
How did that come about? Because obviously I run a small agency as well, so like it's probably a cautionary tale that I need to listen to. But yeah, you go from working in an agency where you're head of sales and you feel quite involved in the whole thing to your everything, like your payroll, your HR, as you said, the cleaner, you delivering the work, selling the work, marketing the work. How did that journey go for you?
It's like boiling the frog, all right? The frog doesn't know that he's getting burnt in hot water until he's burnt in hot water. And that's exactly what it was like for me. I came home one day, sat on the couch and just burst into tears, just out of nowhere. And I couldn't stop for 2 days solid. I couldn't get out of bed. And kind of then, woke up on the Sunday evening. Wife was really supportive. Everybody around me really supportive. And I was like, God, I think it's the business. I think it was, so much pressure. Like even just, I would come home and, one of my staff would hand in their notice, for example. And that is what happens in a business, churn of staff. It's totally, that's totally what happens. But it got me really emotionally. I was like, I felt like
personal.
I had, and and then I might worry about invoices. As a small business, we had major corporates as clients, and like they wouldn't pay their invoice for like 90 days from month end. I'm like, Christ, I'm a small business. Like, how can I? And it's a $5,000 invoice. It's like, give me a break. Or the hard drive falling over and losing 20 grand's worth of footage, and it's all of that stuff that I just said was nothing that I wanted to do. I wanted to be the creative director. I wanted to create content. I wanted to help businesses grow making video content. And that was like 5% of my business. And people, you hear this all the time. And when I start my business, I can work my own hours. I only work 9 to 5.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Good one.
Yeah, that's totally not true. You're the first in and last out. Even if you don't want to be, you have to like think that you're showing face. And as a man, you don't talk about your feelings. And then all of a sudden, I just completely broke. And then, in fact, I was at the start of the pandemic. I actually got diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, right? And I went to the doctor for just a general health check. I have like this annual diabetic review. And I just started crying. It wasn't anything in particular. I just started crying in front of him. And he said, hey, look, does this happen a lot? Are you on the edge of tears? I was like, yeah, absolutely. He goes, look, I think this is what's happening. I think we should try, a small dose of sertraline, antidepressant. And he goes, you will be 10 times the man that you are now. And I was like, I don't really feel, God, 10 times me. I wouldn't want that on my friends. Yeah. But oh my God, 3 months later, I was like, wow. I am now the person that I should have been. Yeah. And I'm so much more energetic and positive and supportive with other people and stuff, So yeah, it was a big time.
Yeah. So after that Sunday evening, after 2 days in bed, and you decided the business is killing me, basically. Like, how long did it take you to wind that business up after that?
I think it was like I've been on the sertraline for a few months, and I was like, okay, cool, I need to do it, and I need to, shut the business and move on. And we'll talk about like the marketing job market that is a bit of a shit show that everyone knows in a minute. But I remember the day coming in. Obviously, no one else knew around me. I had a very close friend, still is a very close friend, who was my 2IC. He was head of video, and he knew all the things that were going on. And I had 5 or 6 staff that didn't know anything, Again, showing face, you just got to like frantically paddling under the water. And then I came in, and even now, this is a videographer thing, a cold colour grade, very blue rather than it being very warm and red, orangey. My vision just felt so blue coming to the office that day, and it just sitting in my office, and I had a board table, and everyone coming in, it just felt low contrast. It was such a weird thing to see. And then I remember saying, like, hey guys, this is it. I'm afraid, I'm making everybody redundant. We're closing the business as of today. We won't be trading. Pack up your stuff, and that's it. Leave the door in 10 minutes, kind of thing. And it was, God, it was such a struggle for me to get through that conversation because I was letting all these people down, as well as just like myself. But then it took a while to obviously pick myself up. I moped a bit, and I think it's okay to do that. It's okay to dwell. because it makes you realize actually where you need to be in that next step, and then the sun started to come out a bit, a little freelance job here and there, which, meant I only worked for like a day or two a week just to kind of gather my thoughts and realize actually, my creative juices were flowing again. It was before I had struggled with ideas, and now, God, I'm like, I can't sleep because I've got too many ideas, not because I'm depressed anymore.
Yeah, that's definitely the right way around.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing that. That's really useful. What advice would you give to somebody that maybe recognises themselves in that sort of previous sort of?
Sometimes it's difficult to recognise it yourself. Like I said, it's like boiling the frog. You don't know it until it happens, right? So my advice really is for people around other people to ask the question, are you okay? And then to ask it a second time. Are you really okay? Because I had this, it was like I was winding up the business and I had this phone call from it was a recruitment headhunter client, and he was a good guy. We had a really good rapport, and it was on the phone, and I was like, hey mate, I'm winding up the business. He goes, oh, are you okay? And I couldn't talk. I had this lump in my throat and I couldn't talk, and tears started coming, and he goes, well, it sounds like you're not okay, and it was at that point I was like, okay, cool. And ever since then, now I've done mental health first aid training. I'm very conscious of people around me, and it's about asking the question and seeing changes in people. Go and do mental health first aid. It's only a 2-day course, but you start to notice things.
What does that entail?
It's about understanding the types of people and how those types of people change, and spotting changes, because it might be that a quiet person becomes loud. Or a hyperactive networking kind of person goes quiet. They have two different things, and it's about having a two-way conversation. It's always about asking, "Are you okay?" and noticing the small differences, even if it's just like, "Oh, he didn't shave today." Or, oh, she doesn't normally, do her top button up. Those weird little nuances that you go, oh, something is mentally or physically changing. There must be something going on, and it could be all manner of things. It could be that they just tripped up the stairs, but it could also be that they've got money troubles or they're having problems at home or whatever. So it's about being aware of other people. You might then in turn see it yourself, but it's about asking the question, are you okay? And then asking it a second time,
Interesting. Thank you for that. So we want to talk a little bit about content and the role it plays in revenue generation. So what's your view? You're obviously a very creative person, and you're in it for the creative part of it. Yeah. But the reason Ocean are in it because content helps to generate revenue, sort of. So how do you see content sort of fitting into the revenue generation plans of the company?
It's funny. You sound like a CFO. Right?
Oh
right?
God, sorry.
Where's the ROI?
Yeah.
So I get it, and yes, it plays a huge part, especially holidays, right? Because it's such a visual thing. You're going to see something. It's not that you're selling a coffee machine because you're drinking coffee. It's that you're going, and what I'm trying to do specifically is to separate Ocean Holidays, or all the 4 brands underneath it, is more the emotional side of marketing, rather than the rational side. You'll see. Nothing beats a Jet2 holiday, save £50. There's that 50 quid lead in, rational, save 50 quid. Where I'm trying to lead in with memories start here. Right? This is, smiles start here, happiness starts here. Because they're not buying a holiday, they're buying the benefit of a holiday, which is the memories and the fun and the relaxation. So absolutely, video content in particular and podcasting and social media plays a massive part because, again, this is something different that not a lot of travel companies are doing, is that we're trying to tell, or commercial storytelling is what I call it, where it's a bit like Star Wars, you have the hero and the guide and and it ends up in a tragedy or a comedy or whatever. So I'm trying to do that for Ocean and guide the viewer through our story, or effectively through the funnel, masked as a story, right? So yeah, video content definitely, and it's also tactical as well. And we'll probably talk about this in a minute in terms of, like for example, I create a number of podcasts and loads of episodes and loads of shorts off the top of that, and actually it's all driven by data. I'm so glad I'm not head of data because I can't be asked for any of that stuff. I'd much rather get the crayons out and start making pictures. But it's all about data-backed creative. Right. So if I can, that saves my job, because if the data lies, then it's the head of data's problem.
How does that? Give me an example of that. So, what sort of data might instruct content?
Yeah, perfect. The perfect example is SEO, right? SEO keywords. We want to, Ocean Florida in particular, one of the brands, we want to rank #1 organically for Florida holidays on Google, right? So the tactic is then to create content for the YouTube description, keywords to relate to that ocean, so to relate to Florida holidays. Yeah. So I started the Florida Holidays podcast.
Right.
And not only is that part of the guide framework within the story framework, it also allows us, I don't care if anybody listens, what will happen is now those episodes, as people are searching for Florida holidays, will start going up the Google rankings because of the YouTube description. I don't care how many Spotify listens. It's easier to rank those, like the Spotify and the YouTube pages, than it is the website, although those assets will give more authority to the website as well.
Does the podcast go on the website?
Yes. Well, so not necessarily. We can and sometimes do embed certain episodes, but really it's for the shorts.
Right.
I don't mind. The episodes that we have are really informative. So like how to save money when going to Disney World, for example. It's 30 minutes of actual, real good nuggets. But it's for the shorts because I can post 10 short videos in 5 days, and they will each get anywhere between 1,000 and 5,000 views, and we only got 500 subscribers on the YouTube channel. So I'd much rather use that as the SEO tactic and our views to then get sponsorship to then reinvest into paid to go push the episodes even further. And then for Wing Boots, I have the luxury travel podcast. And that is the exact same strategy. It's for the YouTube descriptions, for the destinations, so I can post shorts. Again, I don't care how many people listen to it.
So unpacking what you're saying there, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that YouTube being the #1 search engine outside of Google and owned by Google, video ranks highly in the search rankings. So if you can optimize if you can create enough video content, it goes up the rankings quicker than, let's say, a blog post on the website. Is that essentially what you're saying?
Yeah, it's everybody else in the market is trying to push their website up.
Yeah,
us too. But I'm also trying to push the YouTube and the Spotify and everything else and the social, because I think it was August this year, YouTube Shorts, Instagram Reels, and probably TikToks as well now, the individual posts go into the feed, go into the Google rankings as well. So it's no longer just websites and big hero pages, it's those individual shorts as well. So it's really important that the short form strategy, you create a podcast for 2 reasons. One, to start a meaningful conversation with a sales prospect. If I was to ring up the marketing director of Coca-Cola and say, I want to make your content, they will laugh and put the phone down. But if I say, hey, do you want to come in and have a chat about fast-moving consumer goods, they'll bite my arm off. And then this is what you're doing to me. Then you've got me in the room.
I've got nothing to sell to you. I'm sure I can find something.
Yeah. But you're having a really good conversation with somebody. And the other reason is for the short form. I don't care how many people listen to the podcast. It's about number of assets, technically, and the keywords that sit in the YouTube descriptions and the captions.
It's really interesting. It's kind of the way I think about it as well. But came to the conclusion from a different angle probably, but we got the 6 Hours podcast, but we also create podcasts for other companies. And one of the first objections, people think, oh, well, there's too many podcasts. There's so many podcasts that no one's going to listen to ours. And I say it doesn't really matter how many people. I mean, it does matter, but it doesn't matter how many people listen to the full episode.
That's right.
It matters each individual question within your podcast is a piece of content in its own right.
Yeah,
and it could be a blog post surrounding the content.
Yeah, man. You can create 30 pieces of content from one 30-minute episode. Right?
Yeah,
you can get the blog and you can do tweets and snippets and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And even now, like you said, every middle-class white man has a podcast nowadays, right? So we don't need another podcast.
Yeah,
but I think, just like web series.
It needs an umbrella brand. It needs a reason. Why is this content? Why am I talking to you?
That's right.
Because you're on a podcast.
Yeah. And I think the phrase, that you look at web series or webinar, it's kind of old hat nowadays, right? And I think, what I see now is the word podcast feels a bit old hat and go, oh God, he's got obviously he's got a podcast. Look at him.
And the biggest ones are videos, not audio.
That's right. Actually, it's the rise of the online talk show. You look at the influence of like the late shows that you have in the US, and like when one of them went got taken off air by Trump or whatever. That was a massive hoo-ha. And some of these viewerships of the late shows are huge. And now everybody's podcast, if you just remove these mics, it's a chat show. Someone on a couch and a guest. It's like Graham Norton, right? So for me, it's the rise of the talk show online. We're kind of going full circle. And then next, which is my next phase, is live podcasts or live talk shows. But for brands and for businesses, not for Jonathan Ross and Graham Norton.
Yeah. So can you talk a little bit about your planning process, your content planning process, in terms of where it starts and ultimately ends, I suppose, but the sort of different stages that you go through to figure out what actually ends up the public end up seeing? Where do you start?
Yeah, so I do two things. One, I go and just make whatever I want to make, because that's what keeps me happy, right?
Yeah.
I'll go, I'll go and make a 5-minute documentary on whatever it is, but I'll just put the brand's logo on the front of it, right? Because that's like the hobbyist side. But then, like I said, the other way is the data-backed creative, where I'll ask the head of data or I'll ask the head of brand or whatever, what problem do you want to solve, or where do we want to get the eyeballs from? Where's our audience? And I will create content that the audience wants to watch. So, for example, one of our demographics are like the Gogglebox viewers, people that watch Gogglebox. They're the kind of people that buy Florida holidays. So I made our own version of Gogglebox, where it's like two people, our staff members, talking about their memories of when they first went to Florida, and it's like Gogglebox but branded, right? So it's about making content that people want to watch. So really it starts with, what's the problem, how do I solve that problem, and then I will go away and sit in the dark room and come up with a creative and whether that is like a 30-second video or a 5-minute doco or a 30-minute podcast or a live stream or whatever. It could be anything. But the key element is to make sure it's scalable or it has longevity. I will never make, unless it's like an about us or a staff profile, I'll never make just one-off pieces of content for the business. It'll always be episodical content, you know. So, for example, Ocean Originals is the effectively like the memories or the Gogglebox of our staff, and so we've got. It's not just a one-off video. It's like, a pair of staff, 5, 6, 7 hero videos, and then a bunch of shorts off of that. So really, the process starts with data, and then it ends with me sitting in front of a laptop editing shorts. But it is just me. But I use a massive tech stack, right? And like I said, if you create podcasts for other people, then you'll know of like Autopod, and you'll know Descript, because again, it's about spending my time. I'm a creative strategist. I need to spend my time in the right places, and that's coming up with the ideas based on the data. And if I can spend 10 minutes making 10 short videos with subtitles, God, I hate subtitles, but that's super crucial. Then absolutely, I'll use AI and a tech stack to deliver on those assets. So it all starts with data, and it ends with my battery running out.
Excellent. And in terms of organic versus paid, is it all organic content, or do you have a paid strategy as well? Yeah,
so we have. There should always be a paid strategy. I'm big on organic. You look at Gary V. He's like, that's obviously Gary G. He'll bang on about organic social media is the number one underrated focus for any brand or business. I think everyone tries to get that cost per click and that ROI and the reporting and stuff, but organic is absolutely where it is. And really, I want to change that mindset of organic versus paid is actually social first. So actually we'll create content to put in people's hands in their second screen, and then fundamentally try and move that second screen to the first screen, which is a big TV ad, and then back onto the big internet, which is their laptop, where they're, you feel more confident buying a 10, 20 grand holiday on a lappy,
Yeah. Okay. So you mentioned Gary V. He talks about using organic to figure out what people like and then putting paid behind it.
Absolutely. If you have a video that flies off, with thousands of views, rinse that asset, and then find out and really drill down. If you're looking at the retention of watching the video, so if you feel like it drops off in the after 10 minutes, for example, what happened in that 10 minutes, and find that template and repeat it, or like I said, if you've got a video that went viral, push it even harder, or take that video and put it on a different platform. If we went viral on Insta Reels, then why not chuck it on TikTok, for example? You know, and even then with like the separate feeds and the separate platforms, you could also, you know, sometimes you create so much content you haven't got room in the calendar because you're saturating your own market and people get turned off and unfollow. So actually, what you can do now is create feeds based on the content concepts. So, for example, the luxury travel podcast, that is for Winged Boots. Winged Boots is a brand. They have their own TikTok and their own, you know, YouTube channel. But then I have a TikTok channel exclusively for the luxury travel podcast. So now I can post every day on that, and then every day on every other feed as well. So nowadays with like we use later.com with a scheduler. It's so easy just to, you know, within, if I shoot 3 episodes in a day of a podcast, for example, the next day I'll have all 3 heroes edited, and then each hero will have 10 videos edited by the end of that day. All with subtitles, all with music, all color graded, scheduled, done. So it's 2 days, 6 months worth of content done. Okay. And then you move on, you know?
Do you ever make content that's got nothing to do with holidays? Like,
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And because actually, it's what the audience want.
Yeah, it's exactly that. No one wants to watch an advert, right? So you've got to watch... so you've got to create content that people want to watch. And I bang on this, you know, and I'm still trying to convince them, but, you know, a ultra high net worth is not going to watch Jay McDonald on a cruise, right? Just flogging a holiday. They're not going to, you know, that's not what they want. The demographic of an ultra high net worth individual, who are the clients of Winged Boots, plays a lot of golf, right? Got a lot of cash, got a lot of time on their hands, so they play a lot of golf. Why don't we make a golf show? Get our MD to take some of his big clients, you know, half an hour, 9 holes, chatting shit with the client. Sometimes they talk about, oh yeah, I went to South Africa, oh I went to the Maldives, whatever. We're creating content that the viewer, our audience, wants to watch, and we just so happen to mention Winged Boots every now and then, or it's on the Winged Boots YouTube channel, or whatever. So that is, it's don't tell anybody, but that is the differentiator between a business that is good at creating content and great at creating content. If it's a bit like getting laid, right? If you keep talking about yourself all the time, you're not going to get laid when you're on a date. If you get the other person to talk about themselves, or you want, you know, ask them questions, that's where the content comes from. You know, that's the big thing.
Okay. So going back to the beginning, you said when you were in New Zealand, you were running that video agency.
Yeah.
Around that time, I was launching video advertising for the Telegraph in the UK, and so I was early days video, and I've been banging the video drum for as long as I can remember.
It must have been tough if you come from a print, you know, fundamentally print first, to then start talking about video or trying to convince them into video.
It was tough. Like, it's 150-year-old brand at the time.
Yeah.
It started with broadsheet newspapers, moved on online, but people they were programmed to come and read the Telegraph, not come and watch the Telegraph. And so we were trying to create content to make, why don't you watch something? And like, you know,
digital first.
Yeah. So I've loved video. I got the nickname Mike TV because it was called Telegraph TV,
Right,
and Mike, you know, Charlie and Chocolate Factory and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I've been banging the drum for video for ages, and I think it's actually getting even more important. Like, if you look at the way that the next generation of consumers are coming up, the vertical video screens, like, is basically all they got. If they think about my teenage children, Be Real, TikTok, Insta Reels, you know, that stuff like that. It's all this vertical video, and it's all people-led content in vertical videos. So how important in your sort of structure is video? Like, it's pretty important by the sound of it. How would you rank it, and how would you explain to somebody that maybe is doing a lot of written content or whatever? Like, how would you explain the sort of power of video in a content strategy?
Super important. I think people generally are lazy and won't read a blog. I think blogs are for bots. It's great to have, you know, it's a bit like the YouTube description. It's there to help with the rankings. What you're better off doing is writing the blog if you still want to do that, or still want to keep if you're a copywriter, still keep your job. But then create a 2-minute video of someone reading that blog at the top of it, so people can just play it at the top, and then if they want to read it, or if you want the bots to work, do it that way. But video, and it's funny you say about the vertical people-led content. Absolutely. And, you know, what I think my prediction, Gary G, right, is vertical dramas, right, where we kind of see it already, where we have these internet personalities, influencers, that you follow their life, and sometimes these influencers collab. And you see them in each other's videos. And that's no different than characters in a show. You know, there's different storylines overlapping and stuff like that. And if you want to reach the kids, you've got to be vertical. You've got to be social first. You've got to be in that. This is now the first screen, not the TV, at least for the kids anyway, or the people with the disposable income. So vertical dramas. And I think there's so many. It amazes me that there's still loads of people that aren't creating content. And for me, video content. And for me, it's absolutely number one. Obviously, we have other parts of the business that does email and does PPC and SEO. So it's got to be part of a broader marketing mix. But people buy from people, again, cliche, right? And the mirror strategy. If I've got a product that relates to 22-year-old girls, I need to put a 22-year-old girl in that video. Because they want to see themselves, you know. No one's going to buy underwear from me trying to sell them underwear on a video, right?
Thank God for that.
I know, right? But you know, you look at Sydney Sweeney, who's recently just dropped her own underwear brand. She's in it all, and that's the perfect, you know, the mirror strategy. All these other people will see themselves in these videos, and that's how you sell it, right?
Yeah. So you said something there which I quite like. Blogs are for bots.
Yeah.
It kind of opens up the question that we've got two audiences now. We've got the human audience and we've got the AI audience or the bot audience. And they're both important for different reasons, right? You need human engagement in order to sell anything, like, obviously.
Yeah.
But to get people there in the first place, you need AI to reference you. You need AI to understand who you are, what you do, how you do it. Are you authoritative? Are you trustworthy? Have you got the answers to questions people are asking, which goes back to your data-led strategy?
Yeah.
So how does video play in the AI audience that we now have? Does it work very well for an AI audience as well as a human audience?
It does, because we've constantly got assets that the AI can pull from. And actually Ocean Studio, the department or the internal agency that creates content for these four brands, was set up particularly to combat the decline in click-through rates on Google. Because we're getting the AI overview and people are learning briefly as part of their discovery stage when purchasing stuff, and they're no longer clicking through to websites.
Yeah.
So rather than providing text, which is what AI is doing, or at least Google Overview, AI Overview is doing, you're better off, if you want to make some noise, is create the assets that then people go from the discovery stage into the research stage, you know? Because I can force a video, I can't force a blog. I can get a video in your feed, but neither of us have probably bought anything after reading a blog, right? Whereas once you've read the blog, you might go and then read a blog on, say, Florida holidays, but you're then going to go put Florida holidays into YouTube and watch a couple of videos or see what a cruise ship looks like. So I think people nowadays are very visual. We're constantly in front of our screens, and we're inherently lazy nowadays, right? And I think, I've never read a blog. I read a lot of headlines. I don't even go and read the articles. It's funny, actually, a bit of a plug. I'm currently vibe coding an app called Skimmer, which just pulls in headlines from news sources and news API, and it's like TikTok style where you can just swipe, and that's all I do. I don't, it's just so I've got a couple of talking points. If
there's a link there if you want it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So yeah, video huge. I think. And even if, like, some people go, I don't want to be on video, you can do faceless stuff, but it's a bit like posting on LinkedIn, right? It's cringy for the first one, but also if you create your first video, you don't have to post it. No one has to see it. Just break the seal, make that first one. And I think there's a guy, it's like a linguist, I forget what his name is, but he kind of like tells you to do a review, like record a video, watch it on mute, then turn the phone over and listen to it only. And that's how you judge. Because your perception of you is different from others' perception of you.
I hate watching these podcasts back. I would much rather be the other side of the camera and then have someone else on here.
Yeah, but, I love the sound of my own voice.
Right.
That's
how you promoted this on LinkedIn, I saw.
Absolutely. Yeah. And actually what I'll do is, if it's possible, is to grab the hero video. I'll cut a bunch of videos and I'll post one every Friday, probably for the next 3 months. And then that in turn will go towards my own personal branding strategy to get on more podcasts, to raise my profile, and fundamentally, brand awareness for the entire business, right?
Cool. So we're talking about AI there in terms of from a search point of view. If we think about it from your workflow point of view, you talked about captions, subtitles and stuff like that. How has AI helped you as a content creator and how has it hindered you?
Yeah. When it first came about, you know, it was just at the end of the agency a few years ago. I was anti it. I was like, oh God, we're all going to lose our jobs. You know, they're not going to need any more videographers. So I was really anti AI video. And then I've kind of warmed to it. And now I think there's AI tools out there that are super helpful that you would just never, you know, be able to compete yourself. And I've always said that now AI won't take your job, but someone using AI will. And it's about, like, for example, I use ChatGPT. I've created a digital twin. Right, so you know, a custom GPT, and all of the public speaking gigs that I've done, all the podcasts I've been on, I've got all of the transcripts. I wrote it during COVID. I wrote an autobiography, sold like 2. I think my mum bought my buy for those, but uploaded that, and now it kind of knows everything about me. And now what I do when I'm driving in the car, you know, it takes me 2 hours to get to work. I will have a chat of it in the car. And I'll have a brainstorming session, and I don't use it to come up with ideas. It's like bouncing back and forth. Oh, what do you think about this? And then I go, right, at the end of that conversation, everything we spoke about, put it in a Word doc, and I'll download it when I get into the office. So from a brainstorming perspective, AI, huge. From a tech stack, from a tool perspective, oh God, like Descript, like I mentioned, I'll put the entire video up. So for example, you've got obviously a 16:9, like a standard hero video for a podcast. And then we've got a bunch of angles, and it will cut between you and I. What I'll also do is I'll export that vertical with then center aligning the person speaking, right? So then I'll get that full hero video and put that into Descript, and that will I'll go generate 20 videos that will go viral. What they call it, AI Overlord, I think it calls it. Within 30 seconds, it then generates what it thinks, based on the transcript, is going to go viral, or the most top viral videos out of that hero video. It'll add captions automatically for me because it's branded, it knows the color and the font, and right-click, export all, done, you know? And whereas before that, and Autopod as well, that helps edit the actual podcast. Before that, God, it'll take my editor. Not only will it take them ages to create all of those shorts, but they also won't have the knowledge or the ability to recall the knowledge so perfectly on what's going to go viral based on the transcript. Because it knows the transcript inside and out, every word that's ever said, whereas the editor is watching this and editing as they go. So AI is it's a massive tool to get more and better quality assets out the door.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay.
Especially when I'm talking to it in the car. The people go, oh, God, the robot's taken over. It's like, no, like, you should hear the conversations. And not even just for work. Obviously, you know, I'll talk to it like a therapist, or, you know, I'll take a picture of my fridge and go, what can I make for dinner? And it will come back, you know. All that
Yeah, no, it's incredible for that. I've done a similar thing. I haven't called it a digital twin, a personal assistant, but all of the transcripts of all of the calls I have, podcasts, anything I've written, all put it in there. It has access to my CRM. It has access to my calendar, my task list,
the biggest
my everything.
The biggest tip, and I'll try and explain this to people at work, and they're like, "Oh God, it's so creepy." It's just to record your meetings. Have ChatGPT record whilst you're on a Zoom call, and then you got the full transcript. Then the best question to ask it is, "What am I missing?" And then it will go, you know, act like a content strategist. What am I missing out of this meeting? What are the things what are my tasks? What did that person say? How does that person feel if I said this? Because, you know, I would never be able, you know, I'm also really present in the meeting as well, because I'm not sitting there writing notes, and I've remembered everything.
Oh yeah.
It's honestly,
I use a thing called Read AI to do that.
Oh yeah.
Read AI. It records it. It also gives you sentiment by minute.
Oh,
so you can see how it's gone up and down, or maybe I lost someone there.
Yeah.
What I haven't done yet, which I really want to do, is I want to upload like a year's worth of calls to an AI's agent, and ask it what are the most asked questions, and where does sentiment go up and down and stuff like that, so you can try and figure out what people actually, what do they really want from our company. Because it's hiding in plain sight, right? But you just don't remember every call.
No, you can't record it.
You can pick up patterns, but you don't remember every call and every question. And some questions don't seem consequential in the moment, but maybe if they're repeated a lot, then maybe they are, and maybe you need to do something about that.
Absolutely, yeah.
I think it'd be amazing from a sales training point of view. Gary, somehow that hour's just flown by.
Really?
I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
Much appreciated. And I'm sure anyone watching will see lots of your clips.
I certainly hope
from
so.
this very conversation.
Yeah, that's right.
Every week. Thanks again. Much appreciated.
No, thank you very much.